Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to continue on the 757 mower deck, and we're going to remove our mule pulley and see about rebuilding that. As I said in the previous video, the bearings are no longer available for it through John Deere. I was able to find them online. John Deere only sells a complete mule pulley with bearings and everything inside of it, but it's about $250, $260 for that unit, whereas the bearings I purchased were about 30 bucks for the pair. So I'm going to start by removing the PTO drive belt, and then we'll be able to take there's a nut right up top. I believe it's a 19 millimeter. It is kind of like, it is a carriage bolt that goes through the bracket on the bottom. So that's why you have these little square cuts in the deck. Same thing like this bolt for the tensioner. And should be able to take the bolt off and just do some upward pressure on the pulley to keep that bolt, the square portion of that bolt, locked into the bracket so that it doesn't spin. And then once we get the nut off, we'll be able to slide the pulley off completely. Okay, misspoke on that. That is not a 19 millimeter, but it is an 18 millimeter. So once you get the nut off, the pulley lifts right off. Okay, hold on, let me just pan this out just a little bit. There we go. So we have the pulley. Then there's a bushing or spacer and I guess a bushing that goes internally. And then here's the bolt that goes through the bottom, and as you can see there's a hex head, like a carriage bolt, and that's what locks into the deck or into the bracket. So I'm going to get this over to the bench, and so we can take a closer look at these and go ahead and get everything cleaned up. Okay, clean some of the debris off of these. Going to clean them up a little better. We got this, it's almost like a dust shield that goes on top. And then there's another spacer. So we're gonna flip that over, and here is our bearing. And it looks like there is another, looks like there is a spacer inside of there, or, you know, just a spacer to, yeah, there's like a bushing between both bearings. These look like just two sealed bearings. And let me get out the replacements. And here's our replacement bearings, which appear to be the same size. So, you know, like I kind of mentioned, John Deere doesn't sell these bearings anymore. They just sell a complete unit. So this is going to be a little bit of an experiment. And hopefully it works out well. So we're going to give it a shot, see how it goes. So I guess what I will do is get this in position to, I think what I'm going to do is, I know why I don't think that spacer moves over like it does on the other one. So tapping these out, I don't think there's a lip, or there may be. I'm gonna have to play with it. I'm gonna pop these out and see. I don't know if there's a lip or if this just pushes straight through. There's got to be a lip that these bearings sit against. So I'm gonna have to hook the edge and tap it out. So let me figure out the best way to get those out of there. Okay, so a little playing around, and I found that bushing that's in between the bearings there, just like on the spindles, when I was rebuilding the spindles, it does move. It was just really tight in there. These bearings, I'm assuming once these hit their lip, they're very tight on that bushing. So I was able to come in with a little tool and pry it and move it over. And then at that point, now you can move it from side to side and start tapping the bearing and pulling it out. I pulled the seal off the sealed bearing there, just looking around. So now I'm just going to work that bearing out. Okay, got the first bearing out, and the spacer obviously came out. As you can see, it looks like it's pretty well packed with with high temp grease there. It looks almost like it's a red grease. It's like a red and tacky. So now I just gotta tap the other bearing out. Like I said, once you shift that bushing, now you can go side to side and tap that bearing out. You know, it's obviously sealed on both sides, but it looks like, again, like I said, looks like they pack it in there, and I'll do the same thing. Pack the space, put the bushing, when I put one bearing in, pack around the bushing with grease, just so that I guess it can work its way, and when it gets hot, I guess it'll work its way up into that bearing. I thought maybe the inside of the bearing, maybe they would have had the seal removed, but they do not. So obviously I will put it together the same way as it comes apart. So we're going to get that other bearing out. I'm basically just using a hammer and a punch and tapping it out. So while going side to side with the punch to get the first bearing out was really the best way to do that. Getting the second bearing out, the easiest way, was to end up putting a socket on it and driving it straight out, because once you got that bushing out of the way and the other bearing, you have enough room and you can drive that straight out. Okay, so quite the greasy mess. I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up in the parts washer, and then we'll come back and reassemble it. Okay, while the parts are in the parts washer, figured I'd show you. Here's the new bearing. There's the old one. They are identical in size. I'm sure these are probably made in China. Not sure where the original bearings are from. But oh, these are Koyo bearings. It looks like, I think that says Koyo. Yep. So what I'm thinking of doing is seeing if I can pop one side on each of these of the shield off. I'd love to make sure that this grease that's in there, I would actually like to put high temperature grease, you know, red bearing grease inside of these. And then obviously it'll be packed, but then at least I know these bearings would be full. I'm not sure if I can pull these seals off without damaging it, so I'm going to try on the Koyo with a very small screwdriver, see if I can pop that seal out, and then if I'd be able to put it back in. Okay, so yes, I was able to pop the seal out. Just used a pick and basically just gently get under the edge and lift it up, and you'll be able to pop it right off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop off the other one. I'm going to actually wipe some of this grease out, and then I'm going to put high temperature red and tacky in there. Not too worried about if I put a little too much in, because there are no seals other than these seals on here, so any excess grease that liquefies, it will squeeze out the top and the bottom. Yeah, that can make a mess on the machine, but I would assume that would probably just be at initial running, and I don't anticipate that being much of an issue. All right, so wiped out as much of the grease as I could in there, and then went ahead and rolled some red and tacky in there. So now I'm going to pop the seals back in. They very simply and then you just push it all the way around, and you'll feel the lip lock in. Obviously there's a little recess on both inner and outer races where that seal will pop right in there. Okay, now I'm going to go get the parts out of the parts washer, get them wiped down, and then we'll reassemble this. Okay, parts are all cleaned up. Now it's time to reassemble. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to press one bearing in, then I'll flip it over, put the spacer in, and then press the other bearing in. But before I press that second bearing in, once the spacer is in place, I'm going to pack the space around the bushing with a bunch of red grease, which is pretty much what was in there originally. And then once both bearings are pressed in, should be ready for reassembly and be done. Okay, set that down, Used a large socket that fit right over top of that outer race. Tapped it right in. As you can see, it's fully seated to that lip. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this bushing in here right around that center race. I'm going to use my grease gun. I'm just going to pump a bunch of grease around and fill that space up. I mean, I'm not going to fill it up 100% because it wasn't, at least it didn't appear to be filled up 100% originally, but at least put grease in there, which I would assume that when this gets heated up and with use will liquefy to a degree and then seep down through the seal into the bearings. Okay, and that's how that ended up. And I'd say it's probably about 75 to 80% filled in that space. So now I'll take the other bearing, tap that into place, and that should complete the reassembly. All right, so that completes the assembly of the pulley. We got that bushing back in there. Little tip, when you're putting the other bearing in, what I did was to keep that bushing from bouncing or moving as you're tapping it. Just drop that down through, and that will keep it. The bearing that you originally, first bearing you put in, will keep that that center bushing locked into place. All right, so now the only thing left to do is to go ahead and reinstall this into the machine. This goes right on here. This cap goes right on there, and then that bushing and the big washer goes down below. And then this obviously locks it all in. So we're going to go ahead and get it bolted back up to the machine, and we'll come back when we have that together. And there you have it. It's reinstalled. Spins nice and smooth. It's nice and solid. Going to get the belts on, get the rest of the deck back together, and we are done with rebuilding this deck. Fully rebuilt. Spindles are all new, bearings and seals, all new idler pulleys, and the mule pulley is now rebuilt. Now these mule pulleys, like I said, John Deere only sells the completed mule pulley now, and it's about $240 to $260 for the 54-inch deck on the 757, which I guess would be all the 7 series. I think it's the same exact one on the 737, but you'd have to double check that. I'll put the bearing number, the bearing part number, in the description if anybody is doing this, but that's all there is to it. It actually was very simple. There's no seals you have to mess with. It's just 2 bearings you're popping out. The hardest part is getting that first bearing out, but once you get that bushing out of the way, you can tap it from side to side, and that's it. Pulley is all rebuilt. I'll keep you updated on how it goes. If I have any problems with these Amazon bearings, or these aftermarket bearings I should say, I will let everyone know. I hope this helps anyone out there who's looking to do this on their Ztrak. If you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day.